So here before you, you can see a few examples of the medieval swords that I own. These, of course, are Norse and Anglo-Saxon swords and date from the 8th to 10th century mostly. And I love a good sword, and I know you guys love swords as well. But how common were swords back in the medieval times? What percentage of people, of warriors, would have owned a sword? Not many, to be fair. They say that the percentage of people to own a sword, because when you think about a sword, you got to think about the time it takes to make a sword. You got to think about the material, the cost, and the labour. There's a hell of a lot of work involved in making a sword, especially during the times of the Saxons and the Norse, because swords in those days were pattern welded. And that alone is an entire subject which we'll talk about in another video. But that's fascinating that, you know, not many people owned a sword. It was a elitist weapon. It was the weapon of the top 5 or 10% of warriors. So most warriors would not own a sword. They would have a knife and an axe, and preferably a shield and a spear. To own a sword, you had to have a lot of coin. You had to have status. It is a symbol of your wealth. It is a symbol of who you are in Norse and Saxon society. So swords, and like I said, these are a few of the swords I own, are a very rare thing. And they are brutal. Most people think, well, you know, swords are for stabbing. Well, maybe in the shield wall, when it's so tight and compact, you've got no other option other than to stab the sword. But generally, a sword is a slashing weapon. You slash and you hit your target, and then you draw back on the edge of the sharpness of the blade. The first impact of the sword whacking the person, let's say in an arm at the leg, most probably will break the bone. And then as you draw it back, it cuts deeper and deeper. And I'm sure you agree, it's not a very nice result. In fact, if one of these swords was sharp enough, it is sharp enough with a good swing to chop your arm off in one go. That is how brutal these weapons are. And in fact, that's very scary, isn't it, when you think about it? In the medieval battles, the last thing you want is to lose your arm, because that's certain death for you, unless you're so clever and quick that you manage to get a bolt and tie your arm off. You may have a small percentage chance of living and surviving that. But I think mostly, you know, you would die. So swords are lethal. But you can also see a little bit of decoration on this sheath here. This is a sheath, not a scabbard, because it's flexible. You got a nice mount and a bottom mount. So yeah, the percentage of warriors, I reckon, would be between 5 and 10% that would have the ability to own a sword. But what do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, as I just show you my first sword I ever owned, which was this one here, which is a Paul Binns. This one here is an arm. This one here is a Denby blade, very rare, not many around. And this one here is probably another Paul Binns. So I'm quite lucky. I own quite a few Paul Binns blades, and he is a master bladesmith. So yes, enjoy the video. Leave a comment and subscribe if you're new to the channel.